Let's begin. Let's begin. I just want to say, first of all, I'm touched at all the emails that have been coming in about the people that have been enjoying the shiurim in this particular series, and we've got some great questions that have been coming in. I'm maybe going to address one or two of them today, Be'ez Hashem. But if you're enjoying the shiurim, how much more so are you going to enjoy the new Shabbos Sefer that Emet Hashem is going to be coming out, Be'ez Hashem, soon? We're almost at the end, Rabbi Isai. All these halachas, I don't know, but we are looking for sponsors in the beginning of the Sefer. office@beisdovid.com. office@beisdovid.com. Send us an email. We're looking to fill up the first few pages of the Sefer. What is chus, Rabbi Isai? Get Hilchos Shabbos to Klal Yisrael. Okay, let's move on. Now we've done the housekeeping announcements. Let's move on. We are discussing, Rabotai, the halachot of Hatmana. Right? Hatmono is insulating. Insulating means that I am insulating something for heat purposes. We said there is enough community yesterday between Dover HaMoisev Evel and Dover HaShe'ena Moisev Evel, meaning something that positively adds heat, which is also afilu on Erev Shabbos. We're going to discuss that more tomorrow when we discuss halachas of things on a blech. And there's halacha of what? Hatmono with an Eina Moisev Evel. Eina Moisev Evel means it does not positively add heat, and therefore it just keeps the warmth. It keeps the heat what it is, status quo, as long as you possibly can, which we said was an Issa only on Shabbos Kodesh. To do that on Erev Shabbos, there's no problem, which is, by the way, what they used to do, right? They used to take the food, the pot, from the communal oven, bring it home, wrap it up, so that it would stay hot until the next morning. That's not a problem, because it was Hatmono with an Eina Moisev Evel on Erev Shabbos. You're okay. Okay? Rafal, are you with me? Gavaldik. Let's go. Now we mentioned yesterday, and this is where we're holding today. I'd like to finish this today. We'll see if we manage. The 4 conditions. Now again, Rabbi said again, you're going to open up yourself, Be'ez Hashem, and you should, Simon, Reish, and Zayin, and you won't see anywhere that it says Elu Daled Tanoim. These Tanoim are not written down clearly, but these are the Tanoim, the conditions that came out after learning the Sugya, what is going to be for sure in place, needed for it to be also, which means you need all 4 conditions to be there. Otherwise, if you miss one of them, there is no Hatmana. We're going to try to be very, very clear today to make sure that the Olim has this clear. Okay? What are the 4 conditions, one by one, and then we'll talk about them individually. Number 1, Hatmona Legamri, has to be fully Hatmoned. Has to be fully Hatmoned, Nochi. Okay? Fully insulated. Number 2, has to be in a clear vision. Number 3, Kavona, very important. And number 4, Noga B'Kedera, has to be touching the pot itself. Okay? Gavaldik. Now, if you have all of these conditions, then you have Hatmana, which is going to be a problem. If you don't have all 4, you have 3 or 2 or 1 or none, then obviously there's no problem of Hatmana. Okay? Davies, good? Gavaldik. Let's start with number 1. Hatmana Legamri is a machlokes, it's machlokes Rishonim, but it's also more clearly written as a machlokes between Maran HaShulchan Aruch and the Ramah. If Hatmona b'miktsas have Hatmona or eine have Hatmona. Meaning, Hatmona b'miktsas, meaning when I partially insulate something. Obviously, this is going to be a major discussion by the crockpots. We're going to get to it. I don't think we're going to get to it this week. Mitzvah beginning of next week, we're going to talk about Hatmona with a crockpot. But before we get there, Hatmona b'miktsas is a machlokes between Maran HaShulchan Aruch, who holds that Hatmona b'miktsas is asa, and the Ramah that holds that Hatmona b'miktsas, the Ramah is mekel, and holds that Hatmona b'miktsas is mutter. Now, the question again, we're not dealing with a crockpot at this moment of time. We will get to a crockpot, but before we get there, let's discuss a simple idea. What is the definition of Hatmona b'miktsas? So, for example, Zukum Shlomo Zalman Auerbach Zatzal like this: if it's clear that the Hatmona that I'm doing is not really so much for the heat, in other words, I'm clearly showing that I don't really care about the heat, then it's mutter. So, for example, I'm not going to get into that many specific details because the place can go backwards and forwards with this. But generally, if you only insulate, let's say, 1/3 of the pot, then you're okay. Why? Because then, if 2/3 of the pot are exposed and not insulated, it means I'm not that makbid on the heat. Okay? I don't know if any of you have ever noticed, because the Gemara in Chulin says, "Mosa de lo'irama de inish lava daite." Right? Don't know what that means? That means that if you don't think about something, it's not on your mind, you won't notice it. Right? That's why we always have to point out Hashgacha Pratis and the Rabbeinu Shalom in the world, because it has to be constantly on our mind. Right? That's why the Yisod V'Shorish Avoda says how much you have to learn Kibbut of Aim, so it should be constantly on your mind. But Al Kaponim, but why did I even say that? What am I holding? I don't know if anybody even noticed, if you come to my house and you see that the chicken soup is on the hot plate, there's normally a towel on the top. So Baruch Hashem, you guys are not like, Hatmono, what's going on? You were thinking it, but you didn't want, out of respect, you didn't want to ask, right, Nochi? Yeah. Like, I'm not gonna, okay, for fear of being shot down. Yeah. Okay, so basically, if you noticed, the towel is only on the top. It drapes a small amount on the top of the pot, but most of the pot is exposed. Now, it's on a hot plate, so it has a different sugya. We'll talk about that mitzvah tomorrow. Hopefully we'll get there. But the idea is that if most of the pot is exposed, you're okay. The hatmona has to be complete hatmona. Mamish metchilu v'ad soif. Yeah, there can be a couple of cracks here and there. But generally, the entire pot, the entire container is being insulated. That's the problem with hatmona. If it's exposed in a way that's so clear that doesn't really bother me the heat. By the way, the reason I do that is because the lid doesn't fully sit on the pot. So that there's a lot of air spaces, so that sort of closes up the air space. But not because I want to insulate the pot. I don't need to insulate it, it's on the hot plate. Al Kaponim, as long as it's not fully wrapped, then it is not a problem. Makes no nafkamina if it's on the top of the pot, the bottom of the pot. As long as there is a big amount of the pot that's not fully covered, you're okay. Which means, we'll have to discuss if you're allowed to put a towel on top of the crock pot. On the lid of the crock pot, if you cover that with a towel, that may be, I don't know, we'll have to see when we get there, I have no idea now, but if we get there, that may be also l'kuli alma to put a towel on top of the crock pot. Because it could be that your mum is, completely insulating it.
On Erev Shabbos.
I'm talking about even Erev Shabbos. Thank you, Rabbi Wittstein. Even Erev Shabbos, thank you very much. Even Erev Shabbos, that will be asa by a crock pot. Or even what I'm doing, maybe by the towel, if I drape it all the way down. Right, that means, what? To stand up before Shabbos, that's one of the most of heaven. We'll talk about it when we discuss tomorrow the halachas of hot plates. But that's number one. So it has to be fully insulated. So if you want to insulate something, so for example, let's take a simple case. You're going to your mother-in-law with a tray of chicken down the street, and you want to make sure it doesn't get freezing cold on the way. So you cannot, on Shabbos Kodesh, take a towel and wrap it around, and then go to your mother-in-law, because that's hatmona on Shabbos with an enemos of hevel. That's also on Shabbos Kodesh. It would be mutter on Friday afternoon, but also on Shabbos Kodesh. Right? Reuven, you with me? Whereas, Rafal, if you take a towel and just drape it on the top of the container, and the rest of the container is revealed, is not insulated, you're okay. No problem. You may stop some of the heat from going out, but not completely, but that's fine. Daniel, is that clear? Next. That was condition number one, Zachariah. Condition number two. It has to be that the food is in its original pot. This is a Mefurish Gemara, by the way. I'll read you the Gemara. The Gemara says, Shabbos nun aleph amud aleph. Lo asu ela oisu meicham. Avapina min meichem lemeichem is muta. We recognize that from Hilchos Bishul and Hilchos Chazor. We discussed that. Shulchan Aruch says this clearly in Sifei and Siman Reish Nun Zayin, that the only issa of hatmona is when it's in a kli rishon, the original kli was cooked in. Once it was moved to another kli, Eli, there's no hatmona. You know why? Why is there no hatmona? Hello? Very good. It shows I'm not worried about the heat change. It's ready in the kli sheni, right? Therefore, there's no problem. Once it's moved to another kli, there's no problem. For example, let's take a simple example. You have a chicken soup in a bowl, and it's in the bowl, which is a kli sheni, and one of your kids went, to the bathroom, or you're putting one of your kids to bed. So you want to take a little napkin or a towel that's handy, and you want to wrap it around with this chicken soup bowl, so it should keep the heat, so that by the time I come back from putting the kids to bed, it's still going to be nice and hot. Lady, what do you say? Mutter or asa? Avadavitz mutter. Why? It's in the kli sheni. No problem. Yeah, Shmuel, you with me? Got that one, yeah? Is that good? Davey, yeah? Once it's in the kli sheni, it's going to be mutter. Okay, if you have a tea, for example, a tea in a cup, and you want to wrap it in a towel, to keep it nice and warm and geschmack, and the guy in the cold, nice Montreal freezing cold with that tea wrapped up fully in a towel. Mutter. Why? It's in the kli sheni. There's no hatmona in the kli sheni. Oh, comes along a sameh with the gewaldige kashas. Frek na sameh haba kasha. What's the kasha? I'm gonna say it the way you wanted to say, if you don't mind. I'm gonna say you should say better. So the might say like this. This is what Nosameir meant to say. What Nosameir meant to say was, what do you do by a dova gush? I understand if it's a liquid, Tosfos told us in Shabbos Daf Mem that a liquid in the kli sheni doesn't have the same koyach habishul because the walls cool it down. Good, that I hear. But if a dova gush, we know, doesn't apply that way. A dova gush retains its heat and its koyach habishul even in the kli shlishi kund some soifer put down the piskei tshuva, right? Therefore, what is the din if you have a dova gush, you have a piece of kegel, piece of chicken, and you want to insulate, you want to wrap in a couple of layers of foil so it stays nice and hot. Rafal, mutter or asa, it's a dova gush. Why? But it's a Dova Gush. It's got a din of almost of a cleavation. That's the problem. Nuchi, tell him. Yeah. Yeah, but maybe that's only a Dovalach that cools down. Like Daniel said, because then you're not makbid on the heat because it's cooled down, Shmuel. But if it's a Dovagush, no, Sameh, this is your kasha. So I wrote down, I hope I'm right. I'll get horrors now for the Sefer now. Actually, it's quite a good way of checking the Sefer. If anybody has, thinks something, let me know. We'll quickly have the time to make some changes. Yeah? So the Maisa, I wanted a Taina Lanias Taiti It's Mutter, and it was Medaik Be'etzem from the Lashon of where am I? The Lashon of Ni. Oh, what's that? Oh, the Lashon of the Beis Yosef and the Lashon of the Ran as well that say clearly Kli Rishon. The Lashon of the Beis Yosef is that Hatmono is only Osan and Kli Rishon. He's not Machale between Dova Gush and Dova Lach. It's aus the Kli Rishon Shaboy. Mimela and after they found Remis and Karedet Zatzal also writes the same thing Chutshani. A Dova Gush is Mutter and Kli Sheni. Legabe Bishul and Bachme and Ochanami, that's Legabe Bishul. Legabe Hatmono and Mekel. So if you have a piece of schnitzel, a piece of kegel, a piece of chicken that you want to keep warm on Shabbos and insulate it by wrapping it in layers of foil, that would be Mutter. Hatmono with an Einamos of Avel is also on Shabbos. It's in a Kli Sheni. Lively, right? It's not in the original Kli, and therefore it is Mutter, there is no problem. Let me ask the Olam the following Shaila. Are you allowed on Shabbos Kodesh, Ben, your Shaila, are you allowed on Shabbos Kodesh to pour water from the urn, from the Shabbos urn, straight into a thermos flask? A thermos flask is made from 2 layers of glass with a vacuum in between. It keeps the heat for a very long time. Sometimes for a day. 24 hours. Okay, good. I'm sure it depends which type, but yeah. Let's say 24 hours it keeps it hot. Are you allowed on Shabbos Kodesh to do something which I would have assumed is Ein Locha Hatmono Gedoyle Mizu? This is a Hatmono utensil. If you want to call something Hatmono utensil, this is it. This is Hatmono in a nutshell. It's a flask. Move in. What are you tying up? Are you allowed to pour hot water into a flask on Shabbos Kodesh? Aaron. What's the item? Yes. Levi says yes. Psak laloch al ma'aseh from Levi Roth. Why? Whoa. Kavaldik. No.
Because it just keeps it hot. It's not like,
it's fine. It's like one of those things. It's mutter. We'll figure out afterwards why, but we know it's mutter, right? Rav Shlomo Zalman said about taking out lice on Shabbos. Like They asked him, is it boira to take lice out of the hair on Shabbos Kodesh? Great shayla for Chabura in the afternoon, by the way. Is it lice? Is it lice? Is it boira to take lice out of the hair? You're separating the bad from the good, and it's mixed up. So Shlomo Zalman says, listen, it's mutter. I have no idea. We'll figure out afterwards. Oh, but it's mutter. Certain things are mutter. We don't know why, but we'll figure it out. Huh? Says Burech Avruim, what do you mean? It's not a Kli Rishon, Levi. It's not Kli Rishon. The whole Isser Hatmono is in a Kli Rishon. This is the Kli Sheni. It's made to keep the heat. That's beautiful. We don't care. Shiny Geschäft. Aber the Maisa, it's a Kli Sheni. Kli Sheni is mutter.
just keeping the water warm. So how can we get like that?
No, keeping warm is Hatmono. And that will be Asa. But over here, when the moment they pour in the flask, it gets cooler. Obviously, it's a Kli Sheni, it's liquid. So therefore, I don't care anymore, it's a Kli Sheni. So what do you have to, that doesn't make a difference, I don't care. What do you have to be careful when you pour in the flask, Rabbi Eliezer? What do you have to be careful when you pour in the flask? That you always have to be careful, nothing to do with flask, that flask you're talking about. Okay, yeah. No, Simcha, what do you have to be careful when you pour the water from the urn into the thermos? No. No. Come on, guys.
It wasn't wet.
Oh! Kavaldik, Asha, Mayadik. Beautiful. Baruch Hashem. It wasn't wet, meaning you didn't rinse it under the faucet, under the tap, and therefore the liquid over there is not cooked, and you're pouring hot water straight from Kli Rishon. You're over on Bishul with the droplets over there. Beautiful. What about a hot water bottle? A hot water bottle sometimes. What do you guys in America call it?
What's a hot water?
Is there like a special name that I'm missing over here?
We're not sure what you're talking
No! Huh? No!
Those pads,
Am I saying it wrong? What?
you can do it, you put it on your neck or something.
Rabbi say, if you give it to the kids, it's like a rubber piece. It has a cork on the top. It has a nice furry thing or something. You know. What is that? I said it wrong. That was the problem. The hot water bottle. Maybe that a little bit better. Now we have got it. Okay. Horse back riding. All right, Rabbi Sai. Beautiful. Are you allowed to do that? That's mamash hatmana, right? Because it has a layer on the outside that's obviously there to stop the child from getting burnt, but also that it should keep it nice and hot. Oh, beautiful. Asher said it's a cliche, it's water. Maskim. Chazanish was maskim to you, by the way. Chazanish was maskim to you. Gewaldig. Okay, let's go weiter. Rabbi say we must go weiter. We must go weiter. Condition number 3. Condition number 3 was what? Anyone remembers? What was condition number 3? What was condition number 3? Oh, kavana, candy. Gewaldig. Let's go. Condition number 3 was kavana. That means it has to be my kavana to do atmana. If it's not my kavana to do atmana, then it's mutter. What does that mean? For example, Nochi, I'll tell you the example. I'll give you the example. Here's the example. Rabbi Sai, listen carefully. Kavana is very important. What is the example of kavana? If you have a schnitzel and you want to heat the schnitzel on top of the hot water urn so it should get hot, and you take aluminum foil and you wrap it a few times, a whole bunch of layers, and you put it on top of the urn, why are you wrapping it? For hatmana? No. It's not hot. It's from keeping what? From something getting on it. Something getting on it, from making my urn fly shake, from the dust maybe that could be on that. Hygiene purposes. If you're doing it for that, then there's no problem of hatmana because my kavana is nothing to do with hatmana, and therefore it's okay. The same thing would be, what? If you have 2 kavanas. No, that's fine. As long as my primary kavana is not for hatmana purposes, then I'm okay. If I'm wrapping it in order to make sure that it stays in one piece. By the way, you know what shaila this is? People put kishka in the Heilige Schulent on Erev Shabbos. And the problem is that the kishka often, not always, but often is wrapped in a few layers of foil to keep it, in a zar piece. Is that hatmana or not? Or do we say that the wrapping is not to keep the heat? I don't need to keep the heat, it's on a klivishan anyway. The reason for the wrapping is that it should stay in one piece, that I could serve it separately. I could take the kishka out and serve it in slices or whatever, which I wouldn't be able to do. If that's the case, then therefore there's no problem. Why? Because the wrapping is not for hatmana purposes. Agav Dayan Fisher says anyway, it gets the tam on the chulent, and you want it to get the tam on the chulent. Remailer, you bet don't want it to be separate. There are persons say to put a couple of holes in there, just to be guaranteed that my kavanah is not for hatmana purposes. Okay? There are different shilas, the Gabedi shilas, and the last thing is this, Rabbi Sai. 4th and last condition is what? Okay, forget it, I'll say it. The 4th and last condition is Noga B'Kedera. That means, Hatmona means that the insulation has to be touching the container. I once had the schus, I don't know if it was a schus, but I once had a schus of walking around. Somebody, a kashrus organization, asked me to come to a hotel to see their kitchen. And this was the head of the organization of this kashrus organization, that after this conversation I no longer trusted this kashrus organization, and you'll see why. He took me around and he showed me the oven. Big oven, one of these commercial ovens, whatever. He was explaining how it works, and then he says to me, we don't use it on Shabbos. I said, why? Hatmana. So I thought to myself, I didn't say Chas v'shalom, Am ha'oretz. Poshut, and that's why I stopped eating the hersha and stopped trusting the hersha. It's the head of the organization. There's no, we don't use it because it's hatmana. What type of, whatever. Mikitza, somebody actually emailed me with a shaila this week. He says to me about the oven shaila that we discussed by Chazorah, when you slide out the tray and you push it back in, isn't closing it hatmana. So the answer is this. The answer is that whenever the insulation is not touching directly the actual to Rosh Mufurish, the Rosh says this, that whenever it's talking about a pit that they used to dig, whatever, if it's not touching the actual item, then there's no problem. Hatmana has to be that the hatmana, the insulation, is touching the pot, and if it's not, then there is no hatmana. Nafkamina, by the way, is when you're covering, we'll discuss tomorrow, when you're covering lots of pots on a hot plate and you put one big towel over the whole thing, is that hatmana, or do we say that really the hatmana item is not touching each and every pot? In Mitzvah Shem tomorrow, we shall discuss all of those halachas. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.